Hello there, I'm Chris Jones and this is
Collin Clark.
Rylee Gerber.
and our guest.
Austin Mull.
Welcome to Small Town Teenagers. What are some of your interests?
So this little tabletop role-playing game called D&D, or Dungeons and Dragons, essentially. It's a tabletop game. It's role-playing, and the players make all the decisions except for one person who controls it, and then I just kind of write stories in my free time when I'm not doing D&D.
Mm-hmm. I really like to draw and do art and write, read, and listen to music.
Weren't you the one who made the logo for our podcast?
Mm-hmm.
I like to collect vintage action figures and stuff. I also will tend to make a few YouTube videos and stuff. That's about all I got.
Going back to what Austin said with D&D, I have an interesting story I would love to share. So it was my first time doing D&D in general, and I was playing with Austin and his friends, which we still do. And my first action was to hit Austin's character, and I rolled a natural 20. And that is, it's the highest you can roll, and it means you can do like the most damage. I almost killed his character.
I was left on 1 hit point, guys.
I just think that's a funny thing to add. But my interests are reading manga and cosplaying. And manga is, for you guys who don't know, is a Japanese graphic novel, and you basically read it backwards from what you actually know. How does the effect of your personal experiences influence your school performance or vice versa?
So basically, if anything really necessarily bad happens, it could definitely and does definitely heavily impact my school performance. Whether something like really bad happens or something good happens, or you're waiting for something good to happen, like going on a trip or going to a concert, it definitely impacts your school performance, whether it's just by like 1 grade or multiple.
So, sometimes life happens, and sometimes when life happens, stress happens. So normally, like, I tend to like do just average with school, but if I'm stressed out, that average will just fluctuate all over the place. So, yeah.
Yeah, as the school year kind of goes on for me, I kind of get like a little more like, I think like tired, worn out and stuff. And that will actually affect how I perform in school. More like how I feel in school. I'm always getting good grades, so it doesn't necessarily ever affect how I perform in school. Just affects like how I feel in general.
Me personally, I kind of with Collins there. With the more the year goes on, the more tired you'll get. And when that happens, sometimes depending on the person, your grades can sometimes drop because you're tired. It's almost the end of the year and you want to be done.
Yeah.
And like Austin said, stress can really be part of it. Like, that can go along with what Rylee said, where if something really bad happens and you get all stressed out, your grades are more likely to drop that day. Or if something good happens, your stress is more likely to be relieved, so you'll probably get more good grades. What do you dislike about living in a small town and why?
So with living in like small schools and stuff, or like in a small town, you'll have like less diversity, so it will be harder to find your people. Another thing I just like about it is like how quick rumors can spread, and also like since it's such a small town, you'll probably have like traveled around it multiple times. You've probably seen all that there is to see in it. And like if there's any hiking places nearby, you'll probably have hiked in them if you like hiking. And so it will tend to get a little boring after a while.
So, Colin touched on a lot of points that I personally have. My big thing is how quickly rumors can spread. Rumors can spread like wildfire. It's unreal in small towns, but compared to big cities, rumor spreads, it's only going to be like to a couple people. Whereas small towns, like everywhere.
Mhm. Mainly for me, it's seeing people from school outside. Like, whether it's just going to like a grocery store or going out for a walk, I get really uncomfortable when I see people from school outside of my home life. Especially if it's somewhere like far away, then that's
Yeah.
suspicious.
It's suspicious. For me, just what I dislike about it, similar to Rylee with the people stuff. Sometimes it can be nice, like if it's one of your close friends.
Mm-hmm.
But say it's like you're with like a parent or something, and you run into one of their friends. You're gonna be there for like 30 minutes as they talk and talk and talk, and it's like hard to get them to go without like attempting to be rude. So that's something bad. And similar to what Colin said, you would revisit places, and sometimes it can be funner, but sometimes it's just more boring the more you go.
Sometimes, though, seeing the same thing over and over again is a little bit comforting, especially if it doesn't change.
How is your flow in school? Like, is it rocky, smooth, or is it neutral?
I'd say pretty neutral. Like, it'll fluctuate. Sometimes it's rocky, sometimes it's smooth, but other times it's just neutral. Like, most of the time it's neutral. So.
It's a weird voice you got there.
What?
Never mind.
Avoiding the monotone, God.
Right.
So, for me, school has been probably all of them. It really just like depends on the day and the way my body is currently reciprocating my medications.
Yeah.
That drastically impacts everything.
Kind of like what Rylee said, it really depends on the day. For me, it like how my flow is in school really depends on what is my attitude when I wake up and how does it like stay the same, or it usually change to like more negative attitude throughout the day. It's more often just changes to a more negative attitude, like more sad and more grumpy and stuff, or just tired. And that may affect like how smooth or how rocky it is.
For me, flow in school, this last semester it has been rocky. After winter break, I think, especially now that I have my ADHD medication and I'm all set with it, it'll hopefully become a little more smoother. Like at the beginning of the first semester, my grades were pretty low. And that was because I had low, what's the word called?
Self-esteem.
No.
Motivation?
Low motivation. So I didn't really want to do a lot of things. Like I would come into school and most of the time I was like reading a book to pass the time. So that's probably what affected my grades the most, but also my ADHD kicking in without medication. Austin,
Mm-hmm.
you aren't originally from this school, correct?
Yeah.
Would you like to explain how different the schools are? You don't need to mention the schools if you don't want to, but...
So the school I went to, it's a nearby, also small town. Not gonna drop the name, but essentially just like a lot of like not nice culture. It's like either, put it in perspective, it's either like you play sports or you're a loser.
Sounds rough. So were you considered more of an outcast in that school?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it's specifically in my grade, honestly. Like going back to like when I said rumors spread like wildfire. My disdain, where I get that from, is from that school because people were spreading rumors about me nonstop.
Yeah. I also come from a different school, which I won't name. But the schools, they're pretty similar, I think, in my opinion. But I think the main thing was my attitude has changed. Whether that was change of school, change of scenery, or just me growing up, I can't tell. But I will say I had more anger issues when I was younger. And I still kind of lash out sometimes. And I'm still very emotional, but it's more controlled now, I feel. And one thing from my old school that is way different is how they treat you. Like when I lashed out at my old school, one of the things they did was decide to get me in like one of the classrooms and then would block the door. Sometimes it would be like during a lunch period. So that kind of sucks. I don't really remember, but I think they would give me food later. But the point is they would block the door with their body so I couldn't get out. I can see where they were going with it, but at the same time, that doesn't seem that ethical to me now. But I got lucky enough that my mom decided to have me come here instead, and the quote-unquote punishments, which we don't really have any here, are a lot better than my old school. Anyone else have anything to add? Any questions they would like to ask? Thank you for listening to our podcast, Small Town Teenagers.